The first thing you should know about me is this: I am allergic to attention. Not metaphorically. Literally. My left eye twitches when people stare at me for too long, my palms sweat like they're being paid overtime, and my brain responds to public scrutiny by shutting down all higher functions except panic. So of course, fate, petty, dramatic fate, decided to place me in the exact opposite environment. A ballroom. Filled with billionaires. And my boss, who, 5 seconds into his keynote speech, smiled at the audience, pointed at me, and said, "None of this would be possible without my wife." Pause. Smile. Thunderous applause. And then, because the universe enjoys seasoning chaos with audacity, he leaned closer and whispered, "Deny it, and you're fired." That was the moment my soul left my body, filed a resignation letter, and booked a one-way ticket to anywhere else. My name is Lila Morgan. I'm 27 years old, chronically underpaid, until recently, and possess the remarkable talent of being invisible unless something goes catastrophically wrong. Which is why I worked as the executive assistant to Adrian Blackwell. Correction. Mr. Adrian Blackwell. Founder, CEO, and walking stock market of Blackwell Holdings. Net worth, so large Forbes stopped counting and just wrote, unsettling. Adrian was the kind of man who made silence feel loud. 6 foot something, perpetually dressed like he'd just stepped out of a magazine titled Power and Other Things You Can't Afford. His suits were custom. His watches probably had their own security detail. His voice could calm riots and cause them. And me. I scheduled his meetings, fetched his coffee, reminded him to eat, sleep, and occasionally blink. We were not friends. We were not enemies. We were 2 planets orbiting the same sun of corporate capitalism, occasionally colliding over calendar conflicts. So imagine my surprise when, on a random Tuesday morning, he walked into my office, closed the door, and said, "Lila, I need you to pretend to be my wife." Naturally, I laughed. Not a cute laugh. A choking, snorting, "this is how I die" laugh. He did not laugh back. "I'm serious," Adrian said, sitting on the edge of my desk like a man casually discussing the weather. "I need a wife. I need a raise," I replied automatically. He blinked. "This comes with one." That shut me up. He continued, "The board is pushing for stability. Investors like optics. Family men are trustworthy. Single billionaires are suspicious." "Suspicious of what?" I asked. "Impulse yachts." "Fair. You'll attend events. Dinners. Smile. Wear rings. Hold my hand occasionally." I stared at him. "This is illegal." "It's inconvenient," he corrected. "There's a difference." I opened my mouth to refuse. He slid a document across my desk. It was a contract, with more zeros than my bank account had ever seen. "You'll be compensated," he said calmly. "Generously. And if I say no, then you'll continue scheduling my meetings. And I'll hire someone else." Something in his eyes dared me to refuse. Something in my bank app dared me to accept. I signed. I didn't read the fine print. That was my second mistake. We didn't have a ceremony. No flowers. No vows. Just a courthouse, a board officiant, and Adrian saying, "I do," like he was approving a merger. I said, "I do," like I was stepping into traffic. And just like that, I became Mrs. Blackwell. On paper. In public. In the headlines that followed 2 days later. Billionaire CEO secretly married. Who is the mystery woman? Answer, me. Still wearing Target flats. Which brings us back to the ballroom. The charity gala. The chandeliers worth more than my childhood home. Adrian was on stage. I was seated at table 12, praying the shrimp wouldn't judge me. When he said it, "My wife," the word echoed. People turned. Cameras flashed. My eye twitched. He looked directly at me, smiled, and dared me. I stood, because if I was going to combust, I was at least going to do it upright. The applause grew. Someone shouted, "Stand up, Mrs. Blackwell." I waved, like a malfunctioning robot. Adrian finished his speech. The event continued. I remained alive, though barely. Backstage later I hissed, "You said we'd keep this low-key." "This is low-key," he replied. "No fireworks." "You introduced me to a room full of sharks. They're friendly sharks." One of them immediately tried to sell me a startup. Being Adrian Blackwell's wife was not romantic. It was strategic. Breakfast meetings, hand-holding for photographers, whispered arguments in elevators. But something strange happened over time. He remembered how I liked my coffee. I noticed when he loosened his tie, his tell for stress. We developed inside jokes, silent conversations, a rhythm. One night, after a brutal board meeting, we sat on opposite ends of the penthouse couch. "I didn't think this would be easy," I said. He smirked. "I didn't think you'd be this good at it." "High praise," I muttered. He looked at me, really looked, and for a moment, the billionaire armor cracked. "Thank you," he said softly. I hated how much that affected me. If you're enjoying this delicious mess of fake marriages, billionaires with control issues, and assistants who absolutely did not sign up for emotional damage, pause for half a second. Take a breath. And maybe, just maybe, subscribe, like, and drop a comment on Sinful Secrets. Because trust me, it gets worse. Remember that contract. Turns out it had a clause. A termination clause. If either party developed romantic attachment, the agreement would dissolve. Immediately. With penalties. Severe ones. I found out after I realized I was in love with my husband. Fake husband. Corporate spouse. Adrian Blackwell. I stared at the clause like it had personally insulted my ancestors. Of course. Of course the one emotion I couldn't afford was the one I caught. And Adrian. He started looking at me differently. Longer. Softer. Dangerously. The real disaster happened at a press conference. A journalist asked, "Mr. Blackwell, is your marriage real, or is this another billionaire PR stunt?" The room held its breath. Adrian smiled. "My wife is right here," he said. "Ask her." Every camera swung to me. He leaned close and whispered, "Deny it." I smiled. I didn't deny it. "I married him because he's kind," I said. "Brilliant. And occasionally insufferable." Laughter. Applause. Adrian froze. Later in the car he said, "You broke the contract." "So did you," I replied. "You dared me." Silence. Then he laughed. Full-bodied. Unrestrained. "I never stood a chance, did I?" "No," I said softly. "Neither did I." The board found out the truth. The investors panicked. The media speculated. Adrian called an emergency meeting. He stood in front of them and said, "I'm married. I'm in love. Deal with it." They did. Because money talks. And love, apparently, negotiates. We stayed married. Not for optics. For real. I quit being his assistant. I became his partner. Equal. Annoying. Unavoidable. Sometimes I still think about that first night in the ballroom. The fear. The choice. And how denying it would have been the easiest lie of my life. One last sinful whisper. If you laughed, gasped, or whispered, "Oh no," at least once, do yourself a favor. Subscribe, like, and comment on Sinful Secrets. Because some stories aren't meant to be denied. And some dares? They change everything. Purple Heart.